In a future where humanity and the Galactic Council had enjoyed 3,000 years of peace, a startling event unfolded. The Galactic Council, a powerful governing body that managed relations across the galaxy, made a shocking announcement that disrupted the calm. During a grand diplomatic meeting meant to celebrate their enduring peace, the Council declared war on humanity. The announcement came like a thunderbolt. The Council Hall, filled with representatives from various alien races, fell silent. Each delegate looked around bewildered. The humans, who had been allies with the Council for millennia, were stunned. This declaration seemed to come out of nowhere. The Council's spokesperson, a tall alien with shimmering scales, stood before the assembly with an impassive face. "We regret to inform you that, effective immediately, the Galactic Council is declaring war on humanity," the spokesperson declared. The words echoed in the hall, and the room buzzed with shocked murmurs. Humanity's representatives, led by their esteemed ambassador, Robert Hughes, exchanged bewildered glances. Robert's face was pale, his mind racing to understand the sudden and inexplicable hostility. As the initial shock wore off, panic began to spread. News of the declaration spread quickly through the galaxy. On Earth, the announcement was met with disbelief. The human leaders scrambled to make sense of the situation. President Elena Carter convened an emergency meeting with her top advisors. The room was filled with tension as the leaders tried to grasp why the Council, once seen as a trusted ally, would now be their enemy. Robert Hughes, who had been a key figure in maintaining peace, was now the face of human desperation. He knew that this was not just a diplomatic crisis, but a serious threat to their way of life. His mind raced through possible reasons for the Council's sudden aggression. Were there internal conflicts within the Council? Had something happened that changed their view of humanity? The human government issued a public statement, trying to calm the population. President Carter reassured the people that they would defend their planet and their way of life. "We have always valued our peace with the Galactic Council," she said. "We will find out why this happened and do everything in our power to protect our people." Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council's headquarters, the atmosphere was tense. The Council members were divided. Some supported the declaration of war, believing it was necessary for their safety and control. Others were troubled by the decision, seeing it as a dangerous move that could lead to unnecessary bloodshed. The internal strife within the Council hinted at deeper, more complicated issues than what met the eye. As days passed, the human military prepared for the worst. The Council's announcement had left them in a state of high alert. Troops were mobilized, defenses were strengthened, and communication channels were set up to coordinate with their alien allies. The once peaceful and cooperative galaxy was now on the brink of conflict. In private, Robert Hughes met with key military leaders and intelligence officers. "We need to understand the full extent of this threat," he said firmly. "We need to know what we're up against and how best to counter it." His words were not just a call to action, but a desperate attempt to regain control over a rapidly deteriorating situation. The shockwaves of the Council's declaration were felt across the galaxy. The sudden turn of events created confusion and fear. Allies of humanity watched with concern, while those who had been neutral now faced a difficult choice. The galaxy, once a place of relative peace and order, was now a stage for potential chaos. The humans were determined to uncover the true motives behind the Council's decision. They knew that their survival depended on understanding the reasons for this abrupt shift. As the days turned into weeks, the humans and their allies worked tirelessly to prepare for what lay ahead. The galaxy braced itself for a new era of uncertainty, and humanity stood ready to face the challenges of a war that had come as a complete surprise. As the shock of war settled over the galaxy, humanity faced a new challenge: understanding why the Galactic Council had declared war after 3,000 years of peace. With Earth under high alert, Robert Hughes, the human ambassador, took charge of an urgent investigation. The stakes were high, knowing the truth was crucial for planning their next move. Robert assembled a team of top diplomats, military leaders, and intelligence experts. They gathered in a secure conference room, far from prying eyes and ears. The room was filled with tension as they discussed their strategy. Robert began, "We need to find out why the Council declared war. There must be a reason beyond what they've publicly stated. Our survival depends on understanding their true motives." The team set to work immediately. They started by analyzing the Council's public statements, and examining recent political shifts within the Council. They also reviewed historical records and any recent intelligence that might provide clues. Their investigation revealed troubling signs. There were rumors of a secret faction within the Council, a group that had been growing in power and influence. This faction was known for its aggressive stance and desire for control over the galaxy. The team discovered that this faction had been pushing for a war with humanity to secure their position and expand their influence. As Robert's team dug deeper, they found evidence of internal conflict within the Council. Some members were clearly opposed to the war, but their voices were being drowned out by the powerful rogue faction. It became clear that the Council's declaration of war was not a unanimous decision, but the result of a political power struggle. The team also uncovered a startling revelation. The rogue faction had been secretly preparing for this conflict for years. They had stockpiled advanced weapons and developed new military technologies. It was apparent that the faction wanted to catch humanity off guard, ensuring that their initial attacks would be devastating. Armed with this information, Robert knew they had to act quickly. He reached out to other alien races who had once been allies of humanity. He hoped to find support among those who were also wary of the Council's aggressive faction. Many responded positively, sharing their own concerns about the rogue group's intentions. Meanwhile, back on Earth, President Elena Carter addressed the public once more. "We have learned that the war declared by the Galactic Council is driven by a rogue faction within their ranks. This group seeks to control the galaxy and has prepared for this conflict for a long time. We are not alone in this fight. Many of our former allies stand with us." This announcement provided a glimmer of hope and unity among humanity's allies. It also brought a sense of urgency to the preparations. The humans, now aware of the Council's internal strife and the rogue faction's motives, began to devise a counter-strategy. They focused on fortifying their defenses and preparing for the possibility of a prolonged conflict. Robert's team also worked on diplomatic efforts, trying to isolate the rogue faction and bring pressure on the Council to rein them in. They reached out to neutral planets and former Council allies, presenting their findings and seeking to build a coalition against the rogue faction's ambitions. As the days passed, the human and allied forces grew more organized and confident. The knowledge of the Council's internal division gave them a strategic advantage. They could now focus their efforts on countering the rogue faction's moves and preparing for potential confrontations. The discovery of the truth behind the war declaration had given humanity a clearer understanding of their enemy. It also reinforced their resolve to fight for their survival and to seek justice for the unexpected aggression they faced. The stage was set for a conflict that would test their strength and unity, but they now had the knowledge and the allies needed to face the challenge head-on. The war that humanity had feared and fought to prevent finally erupted. The Galactic Council's declaration of conflict was no longer a distant threat. It was now a harsh reality. The once peaceful galaxy was plunged into chaos as the Council's forces launched their first wave of attacks on human colonies. The initial strike came swiftly and ferociously. Early one morning, alarms blared across the human colonies as enemy ships appeared out of the void. The Galactic Council's military had mobilized its full might, attacking key outposts and industrial centers with ruthless efficiency. The attack was sudden and overwhelming, catching many by surprise. On Earth, the news of the attack spread quickly. President Elena Carter and her advisors watched in shock as the images of burning colonies and wrecked spaceships filled their screens. The human leadership moved quickly to respond, coordinating military operations and mobilizing their forces. The atmosphere was tense, but there was a determined resolve in the command center. General Marcus Lee, the head of human military operations, briefed his troops with a clear and urgent message. "We knew this day might come, but now it's here. We must defend our colonies and protect our people. We have the strength, the technology, and the will to push back. Let's show them what humanity is capable of." As the human forces prepared to engage, their newly formed alliances with other alien races proved invaluable. Several former allies and neutral planets had pledged their support, sending their fleets to assist in the defense of human space. The combined forces of humanity and its allies began to organize a defense against the Council's assault. In the midst of the chaos, Robert Hughes, the human ambassador, played a critical role. He worked tirelessly to maintain diplomatic channels open, not just with allies, but also with neutral parties who might be swayed to join the fight against the rogue faction. His efforts helped secure additional support and resources, which were crucial in the early days of the war. The first major battle took place in the outskirts of a vital human colony, New Horizon. The Council's forces had launched a coordinated attack, aiming to cripple the colony's ability to contribute to the war effort. However, the humans were prepared. Using their advanced defensive technology and tactics learned from their years of peace, they managed to repel the initial wave of invaders. The battle was intense. Human pilots in their sleek spacecraft engaged in dogfights with the Council's ships, while ground forces fought fiercely to defend their bases. The sky over New Horizon was filled with flashing lights and explosions as the two sides clashed. Despite the ferocity of the Council's attack, the human forces held their ground. The fight for New Horizon was a turning point. The humans not only defended the colony but also launched a counterattack, targeting Council ships and supply lines. The victory at New Horizon boosted human morale and demonstrated their capability to resist the Council's aggression. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council's rogue faction continued its aggressive push. But they underestimated the resilience and adaptability of humanity. The humans quickly adapted their strategies and technology, using their knowledge of the Council's tactics to their advantage. The Council's initial advantage began to erode as the human forces mounted a series of effective counterattacks. In the weeks that followed, the war became a series of intense battles and skirmishes. Both sides suffered losses, but the humans' ability to adapt and their determination to protect their way of life began to turn the tide. The once overwhelming might of the Council was met with fierce resistance from humanity and its allies. The start of the war was marked by uncertainty and fear, but humanity's response was defined by courage and resilience. The battle for survival had begun, and the outcome would depend on their ability to unite, adapt, and fight against an enemy that had once been a trusted ally. As the conflict raged on, the humans and their allies stood firm, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in their fight for freedom and peace. As the war dragged on, the tide began to shift in humanity's favor. The initial shock and disarray had given way to a determined effort to turn the conflict around. The Galactic Council's aggressive push had been met with unexpected resistance, and the humans were now ready to strike back with renewed strength and strategy. The turning point began with a daring plan orchestrated by General Marcus Lee and his team. They realized that to win the war, they needed to hit the Council where it hurt the most, their supply lines and communication networks. Without these critical elements, the Council's war machine would struggle to maintain its momentum. Robert Hughes, the human ambassador, played a crucial role in the execution of this plan. He coordinated with allied alien forces, ensuring that their combined efforts would focus on the same objective. The Allies provided valuable intelligence and additional firepower which were essential for the success of the operation. One of the most critical targets was the Council's main supply depot located on a remote moon. This depot was a key hub for delivering weapons and resources to the Council's front lines. The plan was to launch a surprise attack to destroy it, cutting off a vital supply route. The attack was executed with precision. A fleet of human and allied ships approached the moon under the cover of a stealth field. As they neared their target, the fleet split into two groups. One group engaged the depot's defenses, while the other moved in to plant explosives at the most crucial points. The battle was fierce, but the element of surprise gave the attacking forces an edge. Human and allied pilots fought against the depot's defenders, while ground troops planted the explosives. The operation was risky, but the coordination between the allied forces proved effective. After a series of intense skirmishes, the depot was successfully destroyed in a massive explosion. The peace talks were held in a neutral location, far from the conflict zones. Representatives from humanity, the Galactic Council, and their allies gathered to discuss the terms of the new agreement. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. The parties were determined to create a lasting peace and rebuild trust after years of conflict. The final agreement, known as the Treaty of Reconciliation, was a comprehensive document that addressed the root causes of the war. The treaty included provisions for disarmament, economic aid to rebuild war-torn regions, and a renewed commitment to peaceful cooperation. It also established mechanisms for monitoring and resolving disputes to prevent future conflicts. The treaty was signed by all parties, marking the official end of the war. The signing ceremony was a moment of profound relief and celebration. Leaders from all sides expressed their commitment to a new era of cooperation and peace. The galaxy, once divided by war, now looked forward to a future where diplomacy and mutual respect would guide their interactions. In the aftermath of the peace agreement, the focus shifted to rebuilding and recovery. The human colonies and allied planets began to heal from the war's devastation. Reconstruction efforts were launched to repair infrastructure and restore normalcy. The once battered civilizations worked together to mend the wounds of war and create a brighter future. Humanity and their allies played a key role in supporting the rebuilding process. Their contributions and support helped to expedite recovery and foster a sense of unity among the galaxy's inhabitants. The cooperative spirit that had emerged during the war continued to drive efforts for reconstruction and reconciliation. The new peace brought a renewed sense of hope and optimism. The lessons learned from the conflict served as a reminder of the importance of dialogue and diplomacy. The galaxy, having weathered the storm of war, embraced a future defined by mutual respect and collaboration. The final chapter of the war marked the beginning of a new era. The Galactic Council and humanity, once adversaries, now worked side by side to build a better galaxy. The peace that followed was not just the absence of conflict, but a positive and active commitment to cooperation and shared progress. The galaxy looked forward to a future where the scars of war healed and new bonds of friendship and understanding flourished.